Hello, today in this video I'm going to show you how to make this animation in Blender. Let me show it to you. I've made this animation in timeline playback for animation. You can choose any dope sheet, graph editor, drivers, but we're going to do it in timeline. So the first thing that you're going to do is open a new Blender. Your Blender will probably not look like this because I've changed some things. I'm just gonna delete this, my background. Now I'm gonna zoom in. We're gonna do it in Minecraft size. That means every object that we spawned in is going to be 0.8 in size. The first thing that we're going to do is add a cube just by pressing Shift A. Then you're gonna go on Mesh, Cube. And now it's really big, so you're going to change that to 0.8. Gonna need to zoom in a little. Or you can just Shift F. You gotta make sure that you're in your view here. If you're on your outliner, it's not gonna work. And if you don't select the cube, it's also not gonna work. So you can rename that to dirt. We're first going to do the dirt block. So now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add the textures to this. So we're going to switch to this mode. You can get the textures online in any browser. You can just get a reference, and then when you got it, you can go on materials. You can get a new material. You're just going to name it dirt. Then you're going to go into shading. And you're gonna get that texture and load it right into here. Let me go do that. So here I got my texture. Let me put it here to the side, and you're going to connect the color with the base color just by doing this. So you're going to see a dirt block like that, but we want to change the texture. So you're going to go into UV editing. Then you're going to change your view so you can see a dirt block. Then you're just going to open the unknown PEG, which is my file. You can open any file that you uploaded. It's going to be right over here. Then you're going to go change your view so it's perfect. Then you're going to click off. You're going to turn it into face mode. You want to make sure it's face mode, or else if you want to move those tiles, if you select them and press G, this will happen. So you're going to press Command Z and turn it into face mode. Then you're going to press on one of the faces. You're going to press on UV, Unwrap, Smart V Project. So now you can see this side is fixed. You're going to do it with every side. Now we're going to be doing the last side, which is, let's see, is it the bottom? I think so. So you're just going to tap on this one, UV, Unwrap, and the same thing, Smart V Project, Unwrap. Now you're going to go into the modeling mode. And there you can see you have your dirt block. So you're not going to animate this yet. You're just going to change the mode for here now. Timeline, reset it to 0. So now you can make it like a little animation. I'm going to copy it. So you're going to press Shift D for duplicate, and you're going to press Y so you can place it right over here. I'm going to make it 4 blocks, so you just Shift and also select this one, then Shift duplicate, and then Y. So then you're going to do the same thing again. This time Shift duplicate X. And then one more time, Shift duplicate X. And there you got your little scene. So now the dirt blocks are set up. Let me do the door. So we're going to do the same thing. Shift A. I'm going to add the cube. So you're going to resize it. Remove it. It's hard to select, so you're just going to go on the outliner and select the cube. you're going to press G, Y to move it on the axis. Then you're going to press scale X, so you can make it a little thicker and thinner. I would say the door is about a block. So let me reset that. Then you can change the thickness. I'll say it's about this thick. And a little higher maybe, so scale Z. About 2 blocks. So let me just scale the Z to double, which is 2. Now you have your door finished. Let me go get the texture. So you're going to press on new material, shading, and get your texture. So here I have my image. So you're going to connect the color to the base color. It's just the same steps. Now this is going to be a little more difficult. You're going to put on the UVs again. This time we're going to change it to the UV that you want. So I'm going to zoom out. Now you guys see which one is the front face. This one is the front face. You guys scale it the same size of the door. And this time I almost forgot again. I didn't turn it into face mode. So let me reset that. Oh, and one more tip. You gotta turn off this sticky selection mode. So just turn it into disabled. Then you can scale it all the way you want. Let me move this a little down. You can adjust the scale. I would say it's about this scale. And now, as you can see, you gotta turn it. So let me press R for rotate, and then you're going to hold Control so it snaps. You can see that we did it wrong, so you gotta turn it around like this. Then you're going to scale it back. And then you're going to scale it. The height. And now that you're done, it looks perfect at the front. You still got to change the sides. We're going to click on this side. We're going to move it down here. We're going to click on top. You're just going to move it down here. It doesn't really matter. It's just wood. So you're going to move this side on here, which is the bottom, and this side. It's also moved. Now the back, we're going to also scale it. Before we scale it, I'm just going to check so it's the right rotation. Let me go check. It's about, yeah, like this. Then you can scale it down again. Then let me scale it. The y-axis. Let me move it on the y-axis. It's about perfect. And then we're going to rotate it again, as you can see. So R, Control. Like this. Perfect. So now we're going to look at the door. The UVs look fine. This is a little off, I would say. Maybe scale it down. That looks good. Let me go back into modeling so I can have my door. I'm going to move it on the z-axis, the y-axis, and position it about here, I would say. Go check. GY. We'll move it to the front of the block. Just for now. So that looks pretty good. Now let's add the zombies. So Shift A. On the y-axis, you can position it wherever you want. And then I move it up. Let me go see. I think I want to have it here, right over here. Then we're going to go move the view a little. So now you can upload a reference by file, open, or just pull it in. So let me do that. So now I've got that nice reference. I can move it wherever I want. Let me move it here so I can see perfectly. Now the head is going to be this texture. So we're going to add a material to this. Let me fast it forward because you know the progress. just pull over this. Now we're going to Shift G, so you can make this all into one object, but I'm not going to do this yet. So now we're going to animate it. First, let me just duplicate a little frame around here and delete this image because we don't need it anymore. Just gonna Shift Duplicate and Z. We're not going to animate this yet. I'm just making the frame for the door. So now let me add the zombie in position. Let me pull up the menu with T so I can rotate them. You want it to be lined up right against the door. Let's say it's about here. So you're going to go animate it now. We're going to animate the door first. We're just going to animate its properties. We're going to go to Object. We're going to move this to 1 for now, because we don't want the door to change. Then we're also going to animate the properties of my zombie. You go select it in the outliner. Okay, I hope this works. So the door is animated at 1. The zombie also needs to be animated. Whoops. Let me just unlock these. Now you can move him to wherever you want. Let me just put this to 40 keyframes. Then move him up front. I would say to the door. Then you're just going to animate its properties and look the animation. Let me go see. Looks good. So that's the first part. Now I would say at maybe 60 keyframes the door opens. So we're going to animate its properties. Wait. Then at 65 we're going to turn it open. About like this. I would say that's an open. Move it back. Move it to the side. Looks like it's open. So let me animate that. Look at the animation. That's backwards. Okay, that looks good. When does it stop? 65? I would say at 70, it's gonna close. So we're gonna close it again. Wait, let me animate it first. Now, it's gonna close. Pushing the zombie away. So let me animate it. Now let me animate. Wait, animated the door, right? So now I'm going to animate the zombie at I think the same time, yeah. So let me let him fly away. Could stretch this to about 110. Wait, let me animate it. When does the door open? Then it closes. It's at 65, so animate that property. Then you can do one keyframe later. I'm going to move the zombie way off, like here. Then you're going to move him up. And he's gone. So just animate that. Move it to here. Oh, I forgot to move it to there. Let me just move him here. Move him here. And bye-bye. Then animate that property. You can change the end to wherever your animation ends. Mine ends at 130. I could make a little rest time, so I would say 150 frames. So now let me watch it. The door opens, the door closes, and the zombie flies away. You can also make it a little faster by putting this animation more here. So now when you want to render it, you're just gonna pause this. Gonna go to render layer, delete the global material. You're going to change the output. You can put it on your desktop here, and you can change the name of it. You're going to select FFPEG movie. Then here you can change how long it should take for each frame. I'm going to put it on 0 so it gets the best quality, or you can put it on 30 seconds, you can put it on 20 seconds, and then you can turn on the samples. I would say 500 is good if you don't want to wait too long, but you can just turn it to this and leave it like this. So then you're going to go to view, you're going to align view, align active camera to view. Or do I still have the camera? Gotta go check if I still have the camera selected. I have the camera, so let me align the view. Look at this. I'd say this is good. Then you're just going to render and render animation. Let me show you my finished animation. I added some extra details for you. Thank you for watching this video. See you in the next Blender tutorial.